Hello and welcome to Womb with a View, episode 5. Not cancelled yet, but hey, there's still time. We'll try our best tonight. Let's go round. Who have we got with us today? Can you introduce yourselves?
Who first?
Yeah, let's go round the screen.
Hi, I'm the famous artist Birdie Rose, and I'm an artist.
I'm Naomi. I'm going to be hosting today. I run Make More Noise.
I'm Sasha White, and I'm the co-founder of plebity.org and the Free Speech Fund.
My name's Louise, and I'm just very frustrated with the way things are going at the moment.
Hiya, I'm Iris. I'm a mum, I'm a grandmother, and I'm now an activist.
Fantastic. So we've got some really interesting stories this week. Birdie, do you want to start with what you have brought to the table?
Yeah, well, I just heard about an hour ago that Tess Holiday is saying that she's anorexic, and I thought that was quite interesting. And we could maybe talk about that, and also I think it coincides with the lying problem that people seem to have.
Right. So can you explain who Tess Holiday is?
Yeah, she's a plus size model she was in a magazine last year, I think it was, on the front cover. And there was a big controversy about whether or not we should put plus size models on covers because being obese and being overweight is unhealthy. And then there was the argument that, a lot of people were balancing that argument with that we don't put anorexic people on the covers anymore because we don't want to promote unhealthy lifestyles or unhealthy ways of being. So she's the plus size model that does that, and she talks a lot about sort of body positivity movement and not fat shaming and things like that. And I thought it was really interesting that she's come out with this bit about being anorexic. She said she's been recovering from anorexia for 6 months now, and I don't think she has.
Okay.
And
why?
Well, I looked into what anorexia is because I thought maybe I've got it wrong and maybe there's an official diagnosis that meets her criteria. And it says that obviously anorexia is a loss of appetite for foods. And I thought, well, maybe she has experienced that. I don't know. But it also says that typically to be clinically anorexic, you have to be 15% or more below what your body weight is supposed to be for your height. And she definitely isn't. I looked on the Googles. Someone's lying, and it ain't me.
Right. So there is a clinical. Go on, Sasha.
Is this another case of us having to deny what we see right in front of our own eyes?
I think it is. I think this
Sounds
is part
like
of
it.
I think. Do you know what it's like when people say they're autistic and they're not, or when people say they're bipolar and they're not? I actually remember when that episode of EastEnders came out when I was like 10 years old, and that boy in it was bipolar, and then I went to school and everybody was saying they were bipolar for about a week. So I think there's a bit of that going on.
Yeah. I'm looking at pictures of her right now and I had never heard of her actually before. Is she British?
I don't know.
No, I think she's American.
She's American, yeah.
Yeah.
She's definitely, I think, I can't remember where I saw it, but she's definitely got queer in her profile. So she's queer anorexic.
Yeah. I just opened her Twitter. It says hashtag all Black Lives Matter, she, her, mom, model, author, activist.
I think as well, she might be doing this for attention to get people talking about her. So I've just fed right into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So are people
Sorry, I was going to say there is someone from a National Eating Disorder Association agrees with her.
Wow.
They say that it's a misconception who can have an eating disorder. Apparently her condition's called atypical diagnosis experience.
I mean, I can completely believe she has disordered eating, but if the clinical diagnosis involves body weight as a criteria to be clinically diagnosed,
It's just we're seeing the same thing crop up again and again. This obsession with denying what is right in front of us. And for me, I just think that's so terrifying. And and also I think there's a lot of real harm that's actually being done by allowing these people to carry on. And
oh no.
Oh, Louise, you're in
The
the middle of
internet
an
censored her.
excellent point.
She was
Oh no,
speaking
she's been
the truth.
censored. It weren't us. We didn't censor her. We liked what she was saying. But I was going to say,
We promise, Google. We promise we'll do whatever you want.
oh, hang on, she's back. Oh no, I've kicked her out by accident. Sorry, guys. We didn't censor you.
Go on, Louise. You were making an excellent point.
Yeah, you were. It was
Yeah,
great.
you were.
yeah, I mean, just to sum up, really, I just find it really, really terrifying. When is it going to end? I mean, what, and I just think it's, well, what is the point? Are these people just narcissistic? Are they just obsessed with themselves? Is there, because it's just infiltrated like every single aspect of society now. And, to when is it going to end? And when are people going to just, yeah.
I think you've hit on something really interesting there as well, with the kind of the narcissism and the multiple identity markers in the profile. And you mentioned it as well, Birdie, when people say that they're artistic and they're not. I don't know. I see this a lot with people who adopt queer identities or artistic identities, or
they're trying to show you how unique they are. That I'm different to you. And also, I was thinking about this as well. That I'm worried about this sort of narrative that Tess Holliday is anorexic, because it could potentially have a negative effect on anorexic people that look at her and think, I look like that then, because I'm anorexic, I must be as big as her. And she is big. I'm not saying that to be horrible. She is.
Yeah, because they have that body dysmorphia where they actually think that their body looks different.
So you're asking these people that are unwell to say that they see something they don't see when that is the disorder they have. Because they have a disorder where they're not seeing what they're supposed to see about themselves. They're not seeing themselves as they are. And then they're looking at Tess Holliday and saying, she's like me. But she's not.
Right. Yeah, that's sinister. And by the way, her pinned tweet says, to everyone that keeps saying you're looking healthy lately or you're losing weight, keep it up. Don't comment on my weight or perceived health. Keep it to yourself.
She makes her whole career out of her weight.
That's the thing.
Yeah, she does. Yeah, she does. Yeah, she does. It actually says that the reason she's lost weight is because of anorexia.
Do you know why I think she says that? Do you know what I think? Yeah. I just thought of this. If she makes a concerted effort to lose weight and says it's because she wants to be healthier, she's going back on everything she's campaigned about for the last 5 years, and she's a hypocrite. So she has to get out of it by saying she's got a disorder.
That's a great idea. They'll give her the Adele treatment. Remember when Adele lost all the weight and all the wokies didn't like her anymore?
Yep.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that is exactly what it is. Yeah. Because
how sad is it that you can't lose weight to be healthy anymore?
Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah, you have to pretend you're ill, and that's why you lost weight, not because you actually might die if you don't lose the weight.
Yeah.
She was the proponent of this kind of fat acceptance movement, wasn't she? And I find a lot of this kind of goes hand in hand with a lot of the woke stuff, the identity politics, the queerios, all of these.
Well, do you know why? Because the fat acceptance movement started years ago. I don't know whether it was like in the 80s or something, or the 90s or something. Somebody will correct me on this. But it started years ago, and it's got really culty roots. It's a bit Scientology.
Oh, go on. Do you know more about
it? I can't remember. I'm going to have to find out more.
Intrigued.
And I'm going to have to come back to it and find out more. But I watched a video ages ago on YouTube about these fat acceptance seminars that were on telly years ago. And it became this whole thing, and people were really culty about it. I know I'm not supposed to label everything a cult, but it is a bit culty.
Yeah.
It was very weird the way people were going on about being fat is like the best way to be and stuff like that, and there's no health there's no health consequences, and it all got a bit denying reality, which is what we're seeing a lot now. Because I think there's a difference.
Industry, the whole exercise, fitness, workout, diet industry is so lucrative. So it kind of also makes sense that they would actually want to promote the image of people being unhealthy. So then they need all those products. I don't know if that's a little conspiracy-ish, but
I think it can. I think we have had a word before about how like looking on Instagram can have a negative impact on you because you're seeing people do better than you, and I think there's something to that there's a pushback to it, because you see all these people getting really fit and you're not getting really fit, you feel like a failure. So one of the things you can do is say, I'm not a failure because I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and this is how I'm supposed to look. So maybe that there's an element of that in there.
Yeah, and it's also anti-expert as well, which you see, I think you see a lot kind of like in the whole post, like, you know, all of this postmodern stuff and, you know, all of this identity politics, you know, like just complete disregard for actual science and, you know, evidence and material reality. And I think there's a real sort of underlying sort of just misery. I feel, you know, these people don't want to accept, you know, the reality that they're in. They, you know, they're too, you know, if you have real problems and you are gender dysphoric, it takes, I imagine, many hours of therapy and many other things. You know, it's not, you know, to say or just have surgery and that'll be it. It's just you know, and when you think all of these people preaching about mental health, you really have a very limited understanding of mental health if you think you're just going to lock your tits off or your dick off and think, oh yeah, that's me, I'm fine. You know, it's just, it's again this whole sort of anti-expert, I believe what I want to believe, and it's all bloody rainbows and glitter, and it's destructive. It needs to be stopped, quite frankly.
I think like a lot of people think, why should I live in reality when I don't have to? Reality is hard.
Yeah.
I was just reading, I don't know if you guys have read Kathleen Stock's book yet, but I just started it.
Yeah.
And in the early chapters, she's talking about the different sort of strains of why people are saying that sex is either a binary or a social construct. And yeah, she's talking about this idea that you guys are referencing, that people don't want to live in reality. They want to imagine that everything about our reality is constructed by our language and our culture and our words. And it's like this big cop out, because then nothing has to be real. We don't have to deal with the fact that like women are vulnerable to men. And that fact is not a feminist fact. Like nature is kind of sexist and we have to grapple with that. But they want to just pretend like those differences are invented by us culturally. So it kind of reminds me of that here with the sized bodies thing.
I think it's a bit childish as well, because it reminds me of when I was a kid, and one of my brothers is only about 12 months apart from me. He's younger, and I remember he really used to infuriate me when he used to tell me that he's 4 and I'm 3, and I was definitely 4 and he's 3. And that used to piss me off so much. And I think that happened. That was fake. That was preparing me for later on in my life when people tell me things that are not true.
Yeah, you do need practice standing up to those people.
Yeah, it done me a favour in the end, I suppose.
I wonder if with a lot of the fat acceptance and a lot of these other kind of woke identity politics ideas, I wonder what you guys think of this. I feel like there's always a kernel of truth in it, or a kernel of something, and it just spins wildly out of control. Like with the fat acceptance thing, because I don't think fat people are inherently lesser people. You know, they are worthy of love and respect and all these other things that everyone is worthy of.
Yeah.
And maybe naively, I thought that the fat acceptance movement was mostly about that, and then I started to realize it's not really about that. I'm not quite. Yeah, it's not about that, and yeah, I think it is something that we see in a lot of these other movements, and it doesn't surprise me then that the personality types that will espouse one of these ideas will also espouse all the others and have all of the other stuff on their Twitter profiles and things like that.
Yeah.
Right. Like, are we really surprised that she had her pronouns in her bio?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. And like you said, it's true. Fat people do face actual discrimination. Like I remember reading that if you are a fat woman, you are more likely to be convicted than a thin woman in court. I mean, that's horrifying. Like, we do have this level of dehumanization around them that needs to change. But again, the activists aren't focused on the important things. They're focused on like these glitzy media models and whatnot.
I think the other thing as well is that the term fat as well has certain connotations. So it makes it very, very difficult to, I think, talk about it. And, you know, it feels like, you know, you're kind of, that's why people are offended, not because you're actually saying, no, actually, there's too much fat in your body and therefore, you know, it can't function as it needs to, but they're just hearing all of these things that are associated or these, and I think that's a real barrier, you know.
Yeah, well, even the term plus sized is softening the blow, really, because if you say fat, people think lazy. It's a bit like I'm deaf, and back in my day when I was growing up, people said deaf and dumb. So so then we started saying hard of hearing. It's to soften the language around it.
Yeah.
Birdie, I want to get your reaction to this. It's a little different topic, but I have a friend who's studying audiology, so she wants to help treat deaf people, like do the cochlear implants and stuff. And she told me that there's this movement of people who think that babies who are born deaf should not be given cochlear implants because then they won't become a part of the deaf community. And it's
I tell you what, there's a whole thing about the deaf community because I was born deaf, but I didn't need cochlear implants. I did get offered them, but it was experimental at the time, and my parents said no. And I obviously learned to speak. I had an operation and in my throat. It's a long story, but I had speech therapy, so I got one-on-one to learn to speak. And from that moment onwards, the less I used sign language, the less I was integrated with the deaf kids, and the more I integrated with the hearing kids in the school, the less the deaf kids liked me, because you're not one of them anymore. It's very tribal, and there's been lots of arguments like that because it gets a bit tricky to integrate. What are you going to integrate with, the hearing kids or the deaf kids? Because they don't let you really be part of both. It's not a thing.
Yeah,
well, it
it's
weren't
very
when I was growing up anyway. Yeah. The cochlear implant's great. When I was a kid, I didn't get it, but I had a few kids in my class that got it over the summer holidays, and they were deaf to the point where they couldn't speak. And when they came back after the summer holidays, they said they could hear me. We were signing to each other. They said they could hear me. I was like, what? You can hear me? You've never heard me before. This is amazing. And by the end of the year, they were talking. It's phenomenal technology. I think people are doing their kids a disservice if they don't do it, if their kid needs it.
Yeah.
Interesting. It's something that I don't really know that much about at all, so it's really interesting to hear you speak on it, Birdie.
Maybe we'll do that another time.
Yeah, I think that would be a great topic. Yeah. Sasha, what have you brought for us this week?
Yeah, so I have a breaking story, actually, that happens to be breaking today. If you're watching this video on Friday, May 14th, that is coming out on plebity.org and 4W Pub. So this French-Canadian woman named Valérie Pelletier, a year ago, she was fired from her job in a women's resource shelter organization in Canada because somebody sent her boss an email with Facebook post that she wrote and said, you know, this is a transphobe. So her job was really, she didn't even work with the women in the shelter. She worked in their store that they had where they earned some money, brought in some money for the shelter. She would like move boxes and things like that and assist in the store. One day, and then she's an activist and she has a Facebook page where she's openly gender critical. So one day her HR manager calls her in for a meeting and it's a man and he just fires her. And I think she said 25 minutes, it was over. And ever since then, she's been trying to take her employer to small claims court and get some remuneration back, but they denied her initially. So she's still fighting this. And I did an interview with her that will be coming out on May 14th. And she's a pretty amazing woman. She's a survivor of the sex industry. She was prostituted from when she was 16 years old, and then she finally got out of the industry when she was 23. And she tells this incredible story. Like, it's really sad. Her father kind of would drive her to her job, and kind of pushed her into doing this and staying in this. And she finally got out and went to school, and she's really intelligent and passionate about feminism. And so she's speaking out now, and she just wants people to know her story and to support her. And we're also giving her a grant from my organization, the Free Speech Fund, because we raise money to give these grants to people who've been fired, to women who've been fired.
Oh,
like
wonderful.
I was also fired. Yeah, and basically just funds for people who are punished for their speech. And so we're giving her a grant, which is really exciting. And yeah, you guys can read more about the story on 4W or on Plebity.
Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah, so, that's going to be a really interesting one.
What was the actual content of the post? Because when you say gender critical, I mean, we all know people have been fired for saying things as heinous as, women are the sex that have the capacity to have babies, or it could be a lot worse and a lot more personal. I doubt it is, but I'd love to know what she said, if you do know.
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, when I asked her that, she said she was never actually shown the email that got her fired. She was never shown which post it was, but she talked about her Facebook page. Basically, she's just saying all the same stuff that we all are talking about on Twitter and stuff. And she said that she is really committed to keeping it like classy, elegant, unimpeachable. That's how she describes herself. So she's not like, I don't think she's out there like calling people names or saying degrading things. She's really talking about women's sex-based rights specifically. And another interesting part of the story, and something that she's very vocal about, which maybe this is what those posts were saying, is that the shelter that she works for is a women's shelter, but they do include trans women. So trans-identified males are housed in the shelter, and they've taken spots away from women. She's witnessed this as she's been working there. So that's something that she's really vocal about. And obviously we know in Canada, this is an ongoing issue. There was the Vancouver rape relief shelter that got defunded because they didn't want to have, I think, male counselors there. So yeah, unfortunately don't know the exact post, but I think it was something along the lines of like, women need sex-based rights.
Absolutely disgusting. Not the post, what happened.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know how much further this can go. Sorry, I don't know.
Go on, Iris.
Yeah, no, I'm wondering, obviously, if it's Canada, then you're not really knowing much about the employment laws over there, what you can take them to tribunals for, and etc. So, because obviously every country is different. You're from America, aren't you, Sasha?
Yeah, I'm from America.
Yeah.
And so I don't know exactly how it works in Canada. I mean, what she wants to do is she's taking them to small claims court. And like here in the US, small claims court is a very, very small amount of money, but she was able to ask for a little more, but they denied her. And I don't know exactly how much detail I can go into because she's still keeping some things private, but it will be all written up on 4W by MK Fain, who's breaking the story with me. So I'm not sure exactly. She doesn't have a lot of recourse against them, but she does have something. She is taking a case. So she does have a lawyer and everything, and it's going to be an ongoing battle.
Yeah, no, that's good.
I'm glad she's taking the legal route because I don't know how many more times this has to happen to women before people take notice. And I actually think it's going to take legal cases to get it noticed.
Yeah, I think so too. And also she refused to sign an NDA, which is really great. So she's just
amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't, I've had similar experiences. I mean, like I've had people that I've volunteered for and worked for telling me I can't use them as references. I mean, I actually lost a job apparently because of my politics. Like, it's not like you hear about these stories and I think you think, or phew, that's in Canada, but slowly, like it's you know,
It's
it's
everywhere.
coming over here, and it's, you know, I mean, I've recently had diversity training at where I work. Basically, you know, I work like involved with like energy efficiency, and they've got pronouns in the emails. You know, we've got training on how to be inclusive, and you know, the woman sitting there talking about the LGBTQYZYPU. You know, it's just embarrassing. Like, it's just like,
It's so cringe.
Yeah, and don't forget the plus at the end.
You forgot the plus.
Do you know what that's like? That's like those. That's like MySpace names all over again, with all the capital letter, small letter, XO, XO, XO. That's that. But everybody has to do it for work now.
Oh my god, the MySpace generation growing up in the office now.
They own everything. Fuck. We should never have let them off MySpace. We should have kept them there where they belong.
It's so true. The song lyrics in your MSN Messenger name as well, except now it's neo-pronouns.
Yes.
Right. Let me tell you guys what I want to make my neo-pronouns to trap these woke people. I want to make my pronouns like a silent beat in music. Because then if you know, misgendering is violence. So if you misgender me, that's violence. But also silence is violence, as we all know very well. So there's no way for you to avoid committing violence against me.
I love it. Can you put XOXO at the end?
That's good. That's good. Adds a little sass.
Great.
I think what's really troubling about this case, as Louise says, you know, it's happening to women's jobs, but particularly this woman, she worked in a shelter. And I can't help but be reminded of all the infamously in Canada, all the trouble that Vancouver Rape Relief has had to endure as well at the hands of trans rights activists.
Yeah, no, it's terrible. And she said she's the type of woman who would have needed the shelter. I mean, she knows what these women are going through, and she's basically decided to dedicate her life to helping other women. She did, you know, she really like raised herself up out of her circumstances, but she also stayed in her community. That's really important to her. She's very much still a part of that community and neighborhood and world, and she wants to, you know, rather than just simply promote herself or get better pay for herself, she wants to actually help and kind of bring other women up with her, which I think is really admirable.
I couldn't think of anyone more
support right now that you know of.
Is she what?
Is she getting much support? Are people sticking by her?
Well, she hasn't gone public yet. So even though this happened a year ago, this is completely the first time that the story is actually being told in the media.
Yeah, I couldn't think of anyone more qualified than her to work in a women's shelter. And it's such a disservice to those women in a shelter that need someone like her. And she's been given the boot, and some bloke is in there perving in a dress. Not to be stereotypical, but come on, we all know it's true.
Yeah.
I'm just saying what you're all thinking.
What, Birdie?
I'm just saying what you're all thinking.
Which we're grateful for, I think.
Why would a man take a job in a women's shelter unless, you know, and I know some men that identify as trans that wouldn't dream of doing that. They just want to live their lives. Yeah. But if a man is taking a role in a women's shelter, we all know that there's, like, why would they do that? We all know.
And not only that, going out of his way to get that role and playing a role in getting women kicked out that need to be there.
Yeah. And then did you guys know the details of this? Because I just remembered at the Vancouver Rape Relief Shelter, when the trans activists at first weren't getting their way, they like nailed a dead rat to the door.
Yeah.
That's a true story, right?
Yeah, it is. Make More Noise actually did a piece on it, and I think it was just before the rat, because there was so much other horrible stuff that we did a bit of a blog post just kind of laying out like what the case was over the years, because it's been going on for about 20 years for Vancouver Rape Relief since the first it was somebody who applied to be there, and the thing is, Vancouver Rape Relief didn't even say you couldn't work here. They just said you can work here, but only in certain capacities. You can't have any of this sort of client facing stuff. And they even like wrote an apology that I can't remember the details, but I did research quite heavily at the time. And we published that, and then maybe a couple of months after, the rat thing happened, and I couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe how much they escalated it.
I think also, I mean, like, there's just no consideration going to these women that are just going to be re-traumatized by this event. I mean, if you've been, you know, subject to
have your drink.
my mum just bought me a tea.
Oh, that's actually quite nice. We don't get tea delivered.
Nice, yeah. That is nice.
I'll have a splash of milk, 2 sugars.
Still with us?
Oh, mothers, honestly. Bringing me a tea like that, I don't know.
How dare she? Well out of
I
order.
know.
Sack her, ban her from her job, cancel her, put her doctor. We don't want her here. No, I'm only joking. I like your mum.
I forgot what I was saying now.
You said a really good thing.
The women who are getting re-traumatized.
Yeah, you know, I mean, it's just like, God, there's literally no refuge at all then, is there? You know, if these women have been, you know, horrifically abused by men, and then they go somewhere, you know, trying to find a haven where they can recover and try and, you know, live in a society and not be re-traumatized. And the place where they go, then they've got this man that they're told they have to treat as if it's a woman. I mean, what is more abusive than that? It's just shocking.
You're right, though. It is another abuse on top of the abuse they've already suffered.
Yeah.
It's bang out of order.
Yeah, and it's a mind fuck too. Yeah. So it's like a psychological game, and just it's kind of devastating.
Yeah.
Well, I hate to say I look forward, because I don't, but I'll read with interest what the story tomorrow. Definitely, thank you for bringing it, and solidarity with. Sorry, what was her name again?
Valerie.
Solidarity with Valerie.
Yeah.
Great, Louise. If we move on to you, what have you brought for us this week?
Yeah, so I've been seeing quite a lot of posts sort of on all sides about the whole Billie Eilish thing. So I sort of was quite intrigued, and sort of I don't really, I mean, I've listened to a couple of her songs and stuff, which they're okay. I mean, she kind of reminds me, like if Tumblr was like, if when I was younger and Tumblr was a thing, like in a person, it would be like Billie Eilish. Yeah, like it's kind of that weird kind of angsty. Anyway, whatever. I think, you know,
smiling with recognition, because I spent time on Tumblr, but I was actually too old for Tumblr when I got into Tumblr, so it's a smile of embarrassment as well.
But yeah, so you know what I mean then, Naomi, when I say that, for sure. But yeah, I really respected her, especially in a time where, you know, there's such intense media pressure on women to look, let's put it mildly, like porn stars, essentially, you know, performing basically like dry humping each other. And it's so disgusting. Anyway, and then obviously, so she's launching this new album, and she did this Vogue photo shoot, as I understand, and I've seen the pictures, obviously, which are a massive change in her look. She's got the new hair and things like that, and it's kind of this, I think it's why I saw a picture contrasting her and the recent stuff with Ellen Page as well. And I thought that was really quite interesting. This sort of very, I think what it portrays more than anything is this view that like womanhood is like black and white, and femininity is like you either are feminine or you're not. There's like no in between. And also I think it's interesting her age as well, because when she came up and she became famous, she was quite young, and now she's reached the age of 19, you know. It and I mean, I've got a quote here. So for instance, from what she said, obviously, she says, "Suddenly you're a hypocrite if you want to show your skin, and you're easy and you're a slut and you're a whore. If I am, then I'm proud. Me and all the girls are hoes, and fuck it, you know." Oh, sorry, F it. Let's turn it around and be empowered in that, she said. Showing your body and showing your skin or not should not take any respect away from you. Now, where there are some things that obviously like I agree with in that, I think it's very difficult not to kind of be a sort of, you know, to see she's gone from not wanting to, you know, be sexualized to, you know, appearing in lingerie in this Vogue thing. And then a lot of what she says is, you know, oh well, you know, if I feel like it, and so on and so forth, and you know, if you want to call me a hoe. And I think my main concern here is, you know, what is this telling young girls that follow like Billie Eilish and things like that? You know, if you've identified with her because you're, you know, you're a tomboy, or you're not particularly feminine, and then all of a sudden, you know, she's switched around and she's kind of presenting herself in this way, you know, especially amongst all of the identity stuff that's going on at the minute, it does make me think, well, what is that telling young girls? You know, that there's no sort of in between. You're either, you know, and I think it kind of goes into this format, and I see it as like another way of trying to say, like, this is a feminine woman and this is like, you know, a masculine woman, and trying to divide instead of there being like a plethora and a whole array of different women and performing different, you know, things. So yeah, I find that quite
I found her statement disappointing, because rather than coming out saying, Billie Eilish, this is me, she went into all this thing about being a whore and that and the other.
I think it's embarrassing. I think it's a cringy, embarrassing 19-year-old thing to say. That's it. But I wouldn't put too much weight into it. I think she'll look back on what she said there in 5 years' time and go, "Oh, really?" But I don't think her change of look is that big of a deal. Everybody made a lot of fuss about it. I think Avril Lavigne done the same thing. She was like proper tomboy, skater girl, whatever it is you want to call her, and then she got in a tutu and a whatever it is, one of those corsets. Yeah, but she did go in a corset, a tutu, put a ton of makeup on. Whereas a year before that, she was no makeup, t-shirt and trousers. So I think there's an element of a rite of passage going on here. But the problem with Billie Eilish is that she's in the public eye and she has this responsibility on her that most 19-year-olds don't. Like to younger girls.
Apparently it was, she broke the world record. It says here that they broke the world record for the fastest picture ever liked. I think it was 1 million likes in
Jesus Christ.
6 minutes.
Is that better than Kim Kardashian's bum breaking the internet?
Well, this is it though, isn't it? And I think that the reason why, another aspect why it's interesting, is because it's like the fact that she's been so covered up. You know, it's like the age-old thing, you know, men are always gagging to see women with their clothes off, and then when they do, you know, there's that saying, oh, somebody's a whore, and so on and so forth. And I think there is an aspect of that she's saying. And I think, you know, to be fair, women, we do deserve to have our own sexuality, you know, and I think there is a struggle in that, and it's very, you know, I think there's such a crushing pressure for famous people to conform, and you know, but I just think this is the thing, because she's such a big influence on a particularly, I'd say, particular set of society, i.e. young women, you know, I think what happens from now on will be quite telling. What is in the new album and how she then goes on from here.
She done there's a new song out a few days ago, and on the video she's wearing like a button-up shirt and trousers that come down to her knees, so she's not very feminine in that. But she's
snake sliding all over, hasn't she? That massive big black
I don't know, it was like an acoustic video. But there's another thing I was thinking about it, and it wasn't that long ago that the newspapers were slagging her off for having like a 30-year-old mum body. So I think she got really affected by that. I think she went and got herself in shape, and then she went, I'm going to fucking show them what a woman is. And she did that.
Oh, was it just a publicity stunt for her new music?
Could be. I think there's a bit more to it than just being pressured to be feminine. I think there's a lot of kicking back at the media. There's a bit of rebellion going on there. And I think there is a bit of cringy 19-year-old embarrassing shit going on with that. Me and my friends are all hoes.
Yeah, I wonder, because it's the language that I do find quite jarring. And I wonder if, as you say, it's that teenage rebellion. She's using deliberately jarring language to kind of to rankle us all, because she wants us all to go, oh, don't say whores, and that's deliberate.
Yeah, that's
But we live in a time. But we live in a time where, you know, the pop music is like, you know, about like look at this, like all
It's about sex.
And, yeah, everything is about sex, and so like I think that is just like they do genuinely think like, oh yeah, call me a hoe, like call me. I mean, like it's like it's so ingrained in the language now that they, in my opinion, a lot of young women don't realize the hate that's actually in those words. They don't realize the history that's in those words, and so when they use them and they think that it's empowering, I find it deeply, deeply disturbing, because you know, to think that you objectifying yourself is in somehow empowering is exactly what, you know, the whole patriarchal system wants. You're going to exploit yourself for them. They don't need you to.
But you've got to think, she's 19. When she was like 5, Tumblr was happening.
Well, yeah.
I don't know the exact age. I don't know anything about Tumblr. I'm not like you lot.
I know too much about Tumblr. I wish I knew less.
Well, the comparison to Elliot Page is really interesting to me, because you have,
I thought so as well.
This one, and they were both, prior to all this, they had similar styles. I mean, if you look at Ellen Page really young, she was wearing like baggy clothes, you know, quote unquote boy clothes, and that's like Billie Eilish, which I thought was really cool that Billie Eilish was wearing those baggy clothes, and especially also because a lot of celebrities who wear that style, they're always like rail thin, you know what I mean? So it's only considered attractive to wear big baggy clothes if you're rail thin. She's like really curvaceous, so that's usually considered unfashionable. And I thought that was great that she kind of made that cool. But yeah, the Elliot Page comparison is really telling, I think, of our cultural moment, for what you said, Louise, because you can be a woman if you're this hyper feminine with the corset and everything, or you can be this masculine person. Like, what is that? Why can't we just be, why can't you be a woman like how Billie Eilish was before, how Ellen Page was before?
I agree. I think the Ellen Page comparison was really, really good, because I had a lot of arguments about the Billie Eilish thing on Twitter, and that never came up, the Elliot Page thing, and that's something I feel like I have to think about for a little bit longer, because there's something there. There's a connection there.
Yeah, and I think when you look at things from a, you know, so I'm quite into the environmental stuff, and I found this particularly interesting. So someone said they did away with community and they gave people identity, and I think like this is something that's so true, like online, you know, like people are so desperate to be like a part of something, you know, and I think a lot of it is sort of that kind of desperation, really.
Yeah, and they want to be there's the being a part of something, and a lot of people want to be a part of the group that is victimized, because the victimized group has the power. So it's about so maybe they're getting empowerment. Maybe they're getting empowerment through victimization. You know, so like you say, why would you connect empowerment to objectifying yourself? Maybe that's it. There's some sort of victimization equals power going on.
Yeah, I think people take a real pleasure in victimhood. And I absolutely agree that we've lost community, and that's been completely destroyed. And I mean, especially over the past year now with coronavirus. And so people are longing for something to feel like they have meaning and purpose.
I think also what's particularly interesting is kind of where you've had this like dissolution of community and feelings of like being connected and things like that, and then, you know, oh no, I forgot what I was going to say. No, sorry guys.
No, I was going to say that there's always going to be this thing with the entertainment business where your artistry is going to be tied to your looks and your appearance. I think.
Yeah, that's
where are the men?
everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what do you mean, Iris, that they can never separate what it's like a trap for women, or?
Yeah, there's never a separation of the artist and looks, is there? If you think about all the female
Not really.
artists if you think of the Spice Girls or the Girl Power, you know, but there's always about their looks, isn't it?
Well,
I love you and your bandanas.
Well, I was going to say with a lot of musicians, is there, you know, there's merit in being tied to the look as well, because if an artist is expressing themselves creatively through music,
it's part of your brand. It's part of your brand.
But I also hear what you're saying, Iris, that it's maybe what we're getting at is that it's their looks which are scrutinized so thoroughly. Yeah. It's not that just that it's tied to their look, which you might expect from an artist. It's that it's scrutinized, it's judged, and it's degraded or exalted. But if you put so out of line, you're fast track to being degraded.
And it's all plastic, because I feel like it would be one thing if these were people who were like the uncommon, rare beauties, and it's sort of human nature to be enamored of that, but they're all plastic and it's all fake and it's made by a surgeon.
Yeah, well, I've been playing with an app that lets you get plastic surgery, and it is freaky as fuck. I made myself look so different, although when I put the Robert Pattinson one in, I looked more like Robert Pattinson. It was weird. I made Robert Pattinson look more Robert Pattinson.
We all need to see those, Birdie.
Yeah.
I'll put them up on Twitter later. I'll let you all have a look.
Good.
I remembered what I was gonna say, and it was about the whole victim thing. I think, you know, going back to this feeling of real, like, sort of despair, I think the reason why perhaps people have become so attached to kind of this victim status is because they feel that they can't do anything about you know, the situation that everything's in. They're inherently unhappy. So what do you do when you can't do anything about the situation that you're in? Well, you just wallow, don't you? And essentially, I just see it as a way of them sort of trying to self-soothe. Really, they're trying to create these sort of communities in which people just tell them what they want to hear.
Well, it comes back to children again. When children have things going on around them that are horrible, they blame themselves.
Yeah.
And they take it in internally. And maybe there's a bit of that going on. There's a lot of shit going on in the world that we wouldn't have known about if it weren't for the internet telling us every day.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't help everyone. You can't do everything. So you take it on internally, and then you make everything revolve around you, because the world's easier to deal with that way.
I think
got a bit deep. Sorry about that.
No, I think you've raised a really interesting point, and I think we see it across a lot of issues as well. It's something that I've been thinking about a lot. Finally, Iris, what story have you brought for us?
Okay, I wanted to discuss about the conversion therapy, how it's such an issue at the moment. Only because I've had people say to me, well, is conversion therapy really a problem in this country? Because, you know, you hear things that happen in other countries, America especially. But I look into it, and yes, I do think that we do need it. Based on religion, I think the part of religion that is going on is the main problem. Looking into it, I found that there is a lot of oh my goodness, what's the word? There's a lot of coercion and a lot of oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. There's a lot of trauma caused to these mainly young people, who will go to their church to look for help, to look for understanding, and they're just taught all these things about how it's wrong based on that particular religion. And I found also that it's mainly homosexuality that's affected. there's a website called Band Conversion Therapy, and they have 10 examples of how it's affected them to do with religion, and 9 out of 10 of them were lesbian or gay. There was only one trans woman that it affected. So I think that when it comes to religion, I think it is something that needs to be done, but I don't know how far the government can go without affecting those religious groups, because they say they're worried that it's going to interfere with their spiritual freedom, and it could potentially criminalize a lot of their clergy or their priests or whatever they're called. And I also, that's the religion part, and it's also the transgender, this self-identity part as well, which I don't think is relevant, but that's obviously being used to off the back of sexuality, I think.
Yeah,
So
they
there's-
seem to be using the conversion therapy rhetoric to argue for the affirmation model, right? Like, if you don't transition the child, this is somehow conversion therapy.
Yeah, transing away the gay.
Yeah.
And are you saying there's a conflict of rights there potentially between the freedom of religion and freedom of belief with the new conversion therapy bill as well?
What they're planning on, yes, definitely. I think, and from what I've read, that's what the religious groups are saying.
Right.
That's what they're saying, which I think is the reason why the consultation is a good thing as well.
Yeah, and I know that here in the US, that will just further allow the trans and gender activists to keep saying that anybody who opposes them is part of this religious conservative right wing, which obviously isn't true. Some of them are, but yeah.
But that's funny because isn't there a Christian group in America that has given a transgender person the role of being bishop?
I don't know. I want to know about
Yeah,
this.
there is. I saw that on Instagram today.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a transgender person who's the first bishop. And I was like, hang on a minute. I thought we were the ones that had the Christian right on our side. What's going on?
Right.
But apparently as well, somebody did message me and say that this Christian thing in America is seen as like one of the quite progressive versions of Christianity. And I was like, yeah, but over here we kind of see all religion as being like conservative, really.
Yeah, there's definitely in the US, there are a lot of religious groups who like brand themselves as progressive and LGBT, and they fly a rainbow flag in front of the church. That's
get money.
You see that in a lot, yeah. And so this is true. The Lutheran Church elected its first transgender bishop who will lead 200 congregations from yesterday, this news story.
I mean, the UK churches are going that way a little bit with I did see a lot of like rainbow stuff the other day, and
the churches like rainbows anyway, don't they?
it's a religious symbol.
It could be a coincidence.
Yeah.
Don't go past the church going, oh, rainbow. It could just be a rainbow, an innocent little rainbow.
But there's that famous clip. Oh, go on, Iris.
No.
I was going to say there's that clip of that trans vicar talking. I can't remember what documentary it's on. It does the rounds every so often. It's a British one. He's at Brighton Pride and he's talking about how the idea of gender, it can be threatening to homosexuality because same-sex relationships, you're not really defining them as same-sex. I can't remember how he words it, but it is, and it's quite, they're just quite open about it, really.
Yeah.
But the idea of gender is, sorry, I was going to say the idea of gender is threatening to religion, because basically you're saying that people are born in the wrong body. So your God put people in the wrong body, but only the people that want to wear different clothes. Everybody else is in the right body. Your God is a bit weird, isn't he?
Yeah, but at the same time, I see a lot of religious people eating it up because they say, oh, you have a gendered soul. So then they conceptualize it like that, and they understand that kind of rhetoric. Like,
yeah, so their God made everyone a gendered soul and then put some of these souls in the wrong sexed bodies. And how does your soul have a gender before you're even born? You're not even born yet. You don't exist. But your God also, in a lot of religions, like when I grew up and I went to church for a bit, and they said to me that God knows everything and everything's predetermined. He even knows if you're going to hell or not. And I was like, but why would he put me on earth if he knows I'm going to hell? Because I don't want to go to hell. And he put me on here knowing that I'm going to go to hell, and he makes me live my life out and then go to hell. That's not a good God.
Yeah, that's really interesting because that's one of the main phrases that came across was saying that God wouldn't make you gay, but he would make you transgender.
It'd make you in the fucking wrong body, but it won't make you love somebody of the same sex.
Yeah.
What a freak.
Well, Sasha, you bring up something interesting because it's something I've noticed as well about the gendered souls. A lot of Christians and religious people seem to understand a lot more the rigidity of stereotypes, and so they're actually a lot more willing to accept somebody born in the wrong body, because if you take an effeminate man and say, oh, we've lost Louise, she'll come back in a second, I'm sure.
We didn't cancel her.
If you take an effeminate man who and say they're a man, that's actually a lot more threatening to the Christian model than an effeminate man.
Right.
Oh, he's not really a man, like he actually must be a woman.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I can kind of see that. Like in my dreams, I can hear everything when I'm asleep. So does that mean my soul is not disabled? That's weird, isn't it? But why did my soul go into a disabled body? Why would God do that to me?
Yeah, I've heard people say that many times, that this is so offensive to people with a disability. Because
it really fucking is.
Yeah. Or cancer patients as well. I bet a cancer patient feels like they were born in the wrong body. But
well, like I was born with rubella syndrome. It killed me twice when I was a baby, and then I was killed again later on when I was like 7. Not killed by anything other than this disability. So, am I born when my mum caught rubella when she was 15 and she was pregnant with me? Did God conduct that, or was I born in the wrong body? Which one is it? Because what happened then gave me a body that I don't want.
Yeah, because I've heard also that when it comes to Catholicism, they prefer a gender identity over being homosexual.
That's just homophobia. That's what that is.
It is.
But you know why? Because being gay,
like,
they know that they're straight. They know that they're straight. Yeah, that's exactly. Why. I mean, the trans the trans women, basically the straight men that want to be lesbians, because they know damn well that they're just straight men.
Yeah.
But it's like in other countries, places like Iran and places like that, it's also more it's much more accepting. If they say, oh, well, you can pretend to be a woman, then that's fine then. It's
you're no longer homosexual. Yeah.
I'd be curious to know to read more on the church's kickback against this. What sort of beliefs would potentially be criminalized and the expression of those beliefs. And I think if I come across a story a couple of years ago, then I think I would have just instinctively gone, oh yeah, the churches, they should just be shut down now anyway. They should not say anything at all. But actually, I value the right to express your belief, even if I don't agree with it. I valued that a lot more than I did a couple of years ago.
Did you hear about the man that got arrested for preaching on a corner? He's a religious man, and they were saying that he was doing homophobic hate speech. So one of the ways I was just thinking you could get out of that homophobic hate speech is by saying that you're pro-trans.
Yeah.
And that you don't believe people are gay, you believe they're in the wrong body.
Well, that's what Iran believes.
Yeah.
There you go. So he doesn't have to get arrested.
That's what they
He don't have
believe.
to get arrested for hate speech no more if he says that he's not saying he hates homosexual people. He's saying there's no such thing as homosexuality because these people were born in the wrong body.
I would be curious to know what he was actually saying when he was arrested as well. Because,
yeah, I would too. Definitely. But I do think it would be interesting if that is the next step in the logic behind speaking about homosexuality as an abomination of some sort.
Yeah.
Right. If they just have to stop saying it's a sin and start saying it's problematic, and then they'll be good.
Yep. Which is
we
the
can
same
close
thing.
the loop.
It is.
Well, I think I would follow the conversion therapy bill development with interest.
Yeah, but there's also the therapists are worried as well, aren't they? They're worried that they're going to be affected by this. So it's not just obviously based on religion, but their worry is more the identity side rather than homosexuality, because there are already things in place to stop that. You know, therapy becoming conversion therapy. They don't actually like the word therapy connected to conversion.
I think we need to normalize making it clear to people that this conversion therapy bill is about putting an affirmation therapy in place of it, and we need to let people know that, because when you hear I support banning conversion therapy, you think, oh, that person supports making sure that gay isn't outlawed or homosexuality isn't outlawed. That people don't realise that what this means is that you're essentially getting rid of gay people and replacing it with trans, and that's going to be the route every time. Otherwise, it's illegal. It's illegal not to trans them. People don't realise that.
Yeah. And then even the name affirmation therapy is misleading because it sounds like you're just affirming what they are naturally, or even just affirming them emotionally, but
it's
it doesn't
a made up thing.
Yeah, it means transitioning.
It doesn't. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It does. It means transitioning.
Yeah.
They are worried because the what is it? One of the therapists saying they're worried about the wording of any bans because there's already been problems in Australia and Canada, where apparently it's the wording from their bills has already been used to criminalize mutual therapy and impose the affirmation model. So that's one of the worries that I heard one of the therapists in this country express. So that's tied to their identity rather than the homosexuality side.
And I would be curious about the punishments meted out as well. You know, what does it mean if you are in breach of the conversion therapy bill? What does that mean for you? What does it mean for your organisation? You know, it's like, could this go somewhere weird?
And how do you breach it? Like, if you've got a kid coming to you that is, say, depressed, and then the parent says, oh, well, you know, my son's depressed, but I've caught him playing with Barbies a few times. That don't tell you anything. But if you don't take it down the trans route from then on, are you breaching the code? Or are you breaching the law?
Yeah. Do you know when the next reading is? If there's going to be a reading of it, Iris, or what the next stage is going to be?
No, I couldn't find the next part of it, which is the consultation, because I wanted to see what they had said about that. But no, I couldn't find anything yet. This is as far as they've gone, as far as I saw from today.
I do think Stonewall are shitting themselves. They've been posted about it non-stop all week.
Yeah, different stories. I actually got some of my information from their Twitter feed.
Did you?
Because I wanted to see what exactly they were claiming was conversion therapy. And like I said, I found so many gay and lesbian stories which were tied to the church rather than therapy-wise. So, yeah, that's
interesting.
Where it came from, yeah. I mean, there was one, the trans woman one that I can think of that I read was to do with, this was back in the 1960s when it happened to him. So I don't understand what the relevance is, because it's not, I mean, what he went through, it was, you know, the sort of therapies they used to have in those days, awful, awful things. So I can understand how he became traumatized by it, but it's not something that happens now. It's not something that would happen to him now in this country. Mind you, out in the open, you never really know what's going on behind closed doors, do you?
Well, we don't know what will come out in 10 years' time.
Well, quite. Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's time for us. So thank you so much, everybody. I thought this was a really great chat, some really interesting ideas. You'll see a selection of us, whoever it might be, next week. If you have any questions or any ideas for stories to cover, do drop a comment and we'll look through them. Please like and subscribe, #WombView, and we'll see you all next time. Bye.
Thank you.
See you later.
Bye.